It happened without warning. One moment, life ran on autopilot, and the next, the simple fact of being alive stood out. Breath moved in and out. Sound arrived. Existence felt undeniable. That recognition landed hard. And then the closeness appeared. Not closeness to anything outside, but to the act of being there at all. The body kept working, ordinary and steady, yet it felt newly personal. Awareness pressed up against itself. The result felt like vertigo, but in the mind. Nothing changed, yet everything felt exposed. The usual sense of distance from living collapsed. There only stood this: hearing happening, breathing happening, and a presence that could not step away. Then attention shifted. It stopped aiming outward and started pointing back. The mind tried to look at the one who looked. In that turn, the simple sense of being here stopped feeling automatic and it started feeling exposed. A strange loop formed. Awareness reached for itself the way a hand reached to grab its own grip. Thoughts offered answers, name, history, personality. But those sounded like labels, not the one doing the noticing. Something stayed out of view. So the ordinary words, like I am, began to wobble. They still made sense, but they no longer landed in the usual place. The observer could not be found as an object, and that mismatch produced the unfamiliar feeling. The mind reached for explanations fast. It labeled a sound, named an emotion, measured a heartbeat. It built a neat report of what happened, but the report never matched the raw event itself. Something stayed unspoken, even while everything got described. A memory helped it feel clear, like a story with a beginning and an end. Words helped too: warm, sharp, heavy, calm. Yet none of those words carried the actual taste of the moment. They pointed at it. They never became it. That gap changed the feeling of being alive. The brain seemed capable of endless detail, but it stayed on the outside of its own experience. It explained the wave, not the wetness, and the mismatch quietly refused to disappear. The mind had not lived in single snapshots. It linked one moment to the next, quietly, so the day felt like one stream. A thought followed a breath, a sound followed a thought, and a steady me seemed to run through it all. But that me depended on constant work. Memory reached back, expectation reached forward, and the present got interpreted in between. Small gaps got covered over, so life felt continuous. When attention lingered, the covering started to show. The strange feeling grew right there. The self no longer felt like a solid owner of experience, but like a stitch pattern holding moments together. And once the stitching became noticeable, the certainty of being someone had started to wobble. A familiar idea usually took charge. A person at the center of everything, a name, a history, a point of view. It felt solid, like the owner of each moment. Then attention lingered, and something else pressed forward, sensations arriving on their own. Sound appeared, then faded. Breath rose, then fell. A thought flashed, already half gone. None of it announced who it belonged to. The mind still tried to stamp it with identity, but the stream kept moving, indifferent to labels. And that was the twist. The sense of being someone stayed powerful, even necessary for decisions and memory. Yet in direct experience, it also seemed optional, like an extra layer added after the fact. Awareness continued with or without the story. The strangest part of being alive had been how certain it felt. Experience arrived first, before any thought could approve it. Pain, sound, and the simple sense of being here never needed proof. Existence announced itself, instantly and completely. But the moment certainty settled in, a question followed behind it. Where did this awareness come from? No one felt the switch being flipped. Thoughts appeared, feelings rose, attention moved, yet the source stayed out of reach. The engine ran unseen. So two truths travelled together. One said, "There was no doubt you existed right now." The other said, "You did not know what this existing really was." That split created the eerie edge, solid presence, hidden cause, and no place to stand outside it. Perception never simply received the world, it built it. Light hit the eyes, and the brain turned it into colour, yet colour never lived in the air. The strange feeling arrived when this translation started to show. Depth felt immediate, but it had been guessed. Two flat images got merged into distance, motion, and shape. Even time got assembled. The brain blended a slice of past with the present to form a smooth now. Meaning followed the same rule. A sound became a warning, a face became familiar, a silence became heavy, all without permission. Aliveness started to feel uncanny because reality had been partly a living interpretation made moment by moment. Awareness had never arrived alone. It rode in on the body. A small rise in arousal tightened the chest, sped the pulse, and suddenly the simple fact of existing felt sharper. The same moment could read as wonder or as warning. Breath quietly steered the meaning. When it turned shallow, thoughts narrowed and the mind scanned for danger. Even without a clear threat, when it slowed, space opened up inside attention, and ordinary sounds and sensations carried a strange weight. Heartbeat and breathing had acted like a hidden soundtrack, colouring everything the mind noticed. A quickened rhythm made the world feel urgent and unreal. A steadier rhythm made it feel vast, as if the self had softened at the edges. The strange part was how trapped awareness felt, and how free it seemed at the same time. Everything happened inside experience, and there was no doorway out, no outside platform existed to double-check it, yet certainty remained. And still, the mind kept performing a second move. It treated seeing, hearing, and thinking as things it could look at. A thought arrived, and attention watched it pass. Experience stayed immediate, but it also became inspectable. That was the paradox that tightened the feeling. You never escaped the stream, but you could point to parts of it, almost like objects held at arm's length. The witness and the witnessed stayed fused, yet they felt separate enough. That strange jolt of being alive had not meant something went wrong. It had meant something got noticed. For a moment, the mind caught itself in the act of setting the frame, deciding what counted as normal and what counted as strange. Usually, life had felt like a set of problems lined up for fixing, plans, fears, choices, explanations, but the jolt had pointed underneath all of that. Before any question formed, awareness had already been there, holding the whole scene together. So the feeling had shifted. It stopped acting like a puzzle that demanded an answer and started acting like a marker, the baseline mystery. Not a gap to close, but the condition that made closing any gap possible at all.